Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about what is supposedly the last Mission Impossible movie, Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. This has been my most anticipated movie of the year by a mile. And I'm just gonna come right out and say it, this movie absolutely freaking rules. It delivers all the goods you want out of a Mission Impossible film. High intensity and fast pacing, jaw-dropping practical stunts, and a well-crafted story that nails what it's going for, along with a great ensemble of characters that aren't Ethan Hunt. Before I continue further, be sure to subscribe to the channel and give the video a thumbs up. It's a great help. Also, feel free to check out my Letterboxd where I am very active. I have my ranking of the Mission Impossible films on there, as well as reviews for all of them because I rewatched all of the movies leading up to The Final Reckoning. As I usually like to do in these reviews, I like to give a bit of context on myself for these movies. I adore the Mission Impossible franchise. I got into them in 2020 during the shutdowns and have been a massive fan ever since. Mission Impossible Fallout very quickly became my favorite action movie of all time. I very much regret the fact that I never saw them earlier and didn't get a chance to see Fallout in theaters. In fact, Fallout is my third favorite movie of all time, period. The only Mission film that isn't great is 2. The rest of them are all amazing movies and all have different styles or filmmaking choices to them that makes every movie feel fresh in some different way. And specifically with Ghost Protocol and onward, the series soared into the stratosphere with how good they are. The consistency is insane. And say what you will about Tom Cruise as a person, but this guy's dedication to making these movies feel as real as possible, where he is risking his life for our entertainment, is to be commended. And one last quick bit of context before I get into the review, I adored Dead Reckoning. If you haven't seen my best movies of 2023 list, it was my favorite movie of that year. I think that's a bit of an important context for The Final Reckoning. Now on to the actual movie. The Final Reckoning delivers the goods in a spectacular fashion. This movie is ambitious, dense, and awe-inspiring. I don't think it's the best Mission Impossible movie, but I am highly satisfied with this movie as a whole. The theater experience alone is worth it, even if you don't end up caring for the story all that much. See this movie on the biggest screen you possibly can, preferably in IMAX because unlike Dead Reckoning, this movie has a significant chunk of the runtime with the expanded aspect ratio, and it is glorious. When it comes to the specifics of the film that I want to talk about, I actually want to start off with some of the more mixed aspects I have on the film. This is the most obviously flawed movie since Ghost Protocol. The first 40 minutes can feel a tad clunky, and some of the editing I found a bit jarring. Most of that is honestly in the first 20 minutes before the opening titles that these movies always tend to have. At one point it felt like they were setting up for something large, and then it just skips straight to that thing that they were setting up without really any build-up. It felt a little strange. I didn't dislike it or anything, it just felt odd. There is also an over-reliance on exposition. Again, I don't think it's bad, there's just a bit too much of it, and some of the explanations feel a bit redundant and make an otherwise very well-paced movie feel strange in its execution. At about 35 to 40 minutes into the movie, it really starts to smooth out, especially once it gets to a security briefing scene with Angela Bassett's President Sloan character. I thought that scene handled the exposition and callbacks of the film very well. And then the movie gets even smoother once the first big fight scene happens, which does take a surprising amount of time to get to, but after that, the movie is absolutely spectacular and has some of the highest highs of the entire franchise. And I want to reiterate that I still really enjoyed the first 40 minutes to an hour of this movie, but I can see where they could have trimmed some stuff down and expanded on other aspects of the story. I found the story setup intriguing, grand in scale, and at points rather emotional. The Final Reckoning has a surprising amount of emotion to it. I didn't necessarily cry or anything, but I felt the right emotions where the movie wanted me to feel them. Within the setup of the movie, there are quite a few flashes to the other movies that will be hit or miss for some. I personally didn't mind them. There are also quite a few callbacks and story elements that are used as connective tissue for the series as a whole, and I really enjoyed this aspect for the most part. There was really only one bit of connective tissue that I felt a tad pointless and didn't really add that much, but other than that, I thought that stuff was great. It really ties in the first and third movies in the series in a way that I did not expect. It just makes the Mission Impossible movies feel grander and more engaging as an overall saga to have it all tied together in some kind of fashion like this movie does. And like I said, once a certain fight scene happens, well, actually, really, once Ethan meets with Mr. Milchick from Severance, the movie soars into being utterly nail biting and white knuckled. The two major set pieces of this movie are some of the best and most intense I have ever seen. The Sevastopol sequence is breathtaking, in a quite literal sense. There were many moments where I had to remind myself that I was not in the movie and that I could breathe because I was so sucked into the sequence itself. It's not like this short scene either. It's like 20 something minutes of just Ethan on his own with pretty much no dialogue and a very subdued musical score. The visual effects were also extremely realistic looking, so the entire scene felt like it was actually real and in the ocean. I cannot even begin to imagine how expensive this one scene was to make. The set design and staging of the submarine itself is a miracle, and I'm surprised it only broke the one time during production. There is no fight scene here, it's all suspense, and it is already a scene I cannot stop thinking about and is easily one of the best in the entire franchise. And then the third act is almost so insane that I just can't even begin to fathom how they shot this sequence. It's been in the trailers a lot, but the trailers still show you very little of how intense this plane sequence truly is. And that's not the only intense stuff happening either. It cuts back and forth between Ethan to his team members and other people as well, without spoilers, consistently, and continuously rackets up the tension until the very end. My hands were literally sweating by the end of this scene. And just these two extended sequences are worth the price of admission alone, and that doesn't even cover the story itself or the characters. The story obviously picks up where Dead Reckoning left off, where Ethan successfully got the completed key that will unlock the secret to where the entity's source code is. It then becomes a tangled web of governmental intrigue, globe-ending stakes, and a personal quest for Ethan. And for me personally, I really enjoy the use of an AI villain with the entity in these last two movies. It's kind of like Ultron from the MCU, just without a physical body or a voice. It's topical to our current world of AI and how the very truth as we know it can be manipulated. And then I think Gabriel as a villain is fine. I like the initial setup with him though. I won't spoil it, but his relationship with the entity is very different from how it was in Dead Reckoning. And to be fair, the Mission Impossible movies have never really had the best villains aside from Solomon Lane and Owen Davian being pretty solid, so I don't mind Gabriel, and Isai Morales does a great job in the role. And then the stakes of this movie are insanely high. It makes the impossible mission in a Mission Impossible movie genuinely feel like it is impossible to accomplish. And pretty much all of the notable characters are great too. A lot of the characters are trying to circumvent the trolley problem by trying to make the trolley go off the track, rather than redirect it to a supposed lesser evil. Ethan Hunt and President Erica Sloan in particular are the embodiment of that aspect of the story. And then Benji is obviously great once again as the more comedic member of the team and provides much of the heart, as well as Luther does. I don't want to spoil what they do with him, but I thought Luther's role was very impactful in this movie. Grace is once again a very solid character who has great chemistry with Ethan. She's not quite Ilsa, but she does the job very well. Tremelt Tillman is an interesting standout side character because he basically acts the same way that he does in Severance, but I really enjoyed his short role in the story. And I've really loved Palm Clementieff as Paris in these latest movies. She says very little, but has great screen presence and kills it in the action sequences. Now, a question a lot of us had going into this movie was, is this really the last Mission Impossible movie? And the definitive answer to that question is, maybe? If it is the last one, it certainly ends on a bang and in a very satisfying way that if this truly was the last one, I would not be upset. Tom Cruise is getting older after all, but the man is 62 right now and still hanging off of airplanes 8,000 feet in the sky, so who knows at this point. The movie does a great job at closing the main plot threads while also leaving it open enough that if Paramount and Tom Cruise want to continue making them, they can. The sheer ambition and utter awesomeness that is the second half of this movie makes up for any minor issues I had during the beginning. The Final Reckoning sticks the landing as an epic blockbuster with incredible action sequences that will leave you shaking after you leave the theater. I loved this movie. Please go see it. See it in IMAX if you can. It is well worth it. Now for a quick ranking of the franchise, because I don't really want to make another video doing that because my opinions haven't changed since the last time I did a video on it. In last place is Mission Impossible 2. It's the only one that I would say is kind of bad. It's just not that interesting and the action isn't really all that good in my opinion. In 7th place is the original Mission Impossible. It's very different from where we are now, but it's iconic for a reason, as it is a great movie. It's just not one of my favorites. In 6th place is Mission Impossible 3. The only thing that I legitimately have to say negatively about this movie is the overuse of camera shake and some of the color grading. Other than that, it's a great movie. My 5th place is Ghost Protocol. It might be a bit of a controversial placement to put it here, but that's just really how good these movies are that it's quote-unquote this low. My 4th place for now is The Final Reckoning. It's an ambitious epic that wraps up the franchise very nicely. It's just not quite as tightly made as my top 3, and that's why it's not higher. 3rd place is Rogue Nation. This is a masterclass in suspense filmmaking in my opinion. My 2nd place is Dead Reckoning. I do slightly prefer this one to Final Reckoning simply because of how propulsive the pacing is for the entirety of the runtime. And number 1 is Fallout, which I think is the greatest action movie ever made. That will do it for my review of Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and give the video a thumbs up. Stay tuned for more stuff in the future. Okay, bye.
If it is to be said, so it is.